Now we get to, so after we've been through our proof points, we want to put up a kind of proposal that tells people about if they were to go with you, with your product, what that would mean, and give them a brief outline of the major components, particularly pointing out delivery time, installation time, some of those just key components. Now, I also like to put up pricing very early in presentations as well, because at the end of the presentation, you know, one of the objectives is probably going to be price anyway, so why not just throw it at people and then have time to justify it? So if I can add lots of benefits and value to my presentation and talk about why maybe my product is a little bit more expensive than everyone else, but the value that it delivers over and above anyone else, then by the time I get to the end and the close of the presentation, I'll have done a lot to justify the price and won't have that huge objection at the end. Everyone will be kind of ready for it and be thinking about the value that we're offering. So I like to give people an outline of the solution, maybe some ways that that they could work with your solution. In the software industry, for example, there might be a workshop where we uncover the real requirements that the customer has and where that value and even the business case might be. We might implement the solution and talk to them about how we're going to do a lot of the heavy lifting in the solution. We also talk about the user experience and how, you know, it's a solution that we have that is easily adapted by users. Users love it. Maybe some user experiences, but give them the key components of the solution as it relates to the organization, to people in key roles like the people in the room, and to the average user of the solution, and you'll be covering pretty much all bases. So next we get to Q&A time. So we're moving into the ending of the proposal, and this is great because you get a chance to uncover any additional objections. Now, if the room is quiet, you need to probe and point out people. If there was a skeptic during the presentation, ask them directly, quite direct questions. So, George, what do you think? Are you, are you ready to go ahead? Would you have any issues with agreeing to order 1,000 of our widgets? And the purpose of this is to publicly uncover those objections, I should say, in front of everyone in the room, so that you have a chance to cover them off. There can't be any sort of hidden backroom discussions about these objections if you raise them publicly and answer them with good, solid information. So you want to do that. You also discover who the enemies are during the Q&A time. Just be careful of the people who are quiet. But what I like to do with, if I don't get any questions at all, I'll go then back to the whiteboard and say, so George, now you mentioned before that you were particularly interested in the pricing of the solution and the cost per head. So hopefully I've addressed that for you. Do you feel comfortable now with the way I've described the pricing, and do you have any further questions about that? Do you see the value of the solution that we're offering, George? Do you have any questions about whether this is good value, even though it is a little bit more expensive? Do you see substantial benefits there? So I will really push hard on that to make sure that there is nothing hidden that can be discussed after we leave the room that we just didn't know about. What you also want to do is, this will give you the chance also to provide additional information. So you don't need to do it all during the meeting, but you can say to George, look, I've got an additional ROI model and a business case model that you can use that we will be happy to work through with you. Or I have some analyst reports, some financial statements, all of that background material that you need. You can also make a note of, and as quickly as you can respond and get that to George so that he's happy. Then the next thing is to just make sure that everyone understands that during the Q&A, as you get towards the end of the Q&A, so you can say to people that, okay, so we've agreed in concept that pending further meetings and your exploration of the solution, but we've agreed in concept that you think this is actually a good idea, that you like the idea of our vehicles or our software or our products, and that if we can find a viable solution and one that works financially for everyone, that we should go ahead and do something and see if we can get the agreement to move forward. Now, the next steps stage of a presentation is really saying, okay, well, what happens from here? After we walk away from this meeting, what are the things that normally need to happen before we can start the project or before we can deliver the vehicle? Who needs to be involved and what do they need to do? So in the case of a software solution, you can see here there might be an RFI, an RFP, maybe a vendor shootout, a procurement process, some contract negotiation. All of this takes time, and if we can talk about the timeline and who is going to be involved in that, we can get people thinking about when they can do things, and we can start to map that out and say, well, look, we can have you going in about 9 weeks time if we all jump on this and start moving fairly quickly. How does everyone feel about that? You could have your brand new solution in and running, and your users out there using the new solution in 9 weeks. Does everyone think that's a reasonable idea? So you start to accelerate things when you start putting people in a position of ownership, and they start to see themselves using the solution. The next thing is to close with your wow statement. So back to that story about how I saved, or how this chap told me that I saved his marriage. Let me tell you what happened. Now, so you want to close on the wow statement that you made earlier. It might be a funny story, or it might be a pure business story, part of a business case where you talked about where a customer made their savings and how they made them, and how that improved things from 3 perspectives. For the organization, what actually happened from an organizational perspective: the bottom line was increased by 2%, or the shareholder value went up. They were able to open a new plant in half the time, half the cost. They didn't have to fire the 10 people that they might have. Whatever it was that might be of interest to the organization about that wow story that you told, should be delivered from an organizational perspective. Then you should tell the story from the perspective of the people involved and their role in the organization. So when we talk about the benefits of our solution, I want anyone that purchases this, or anyone that's thinking about it, to know that this is good for the company. It's also good for their position, the role that they have within the organization. They'll be seen as a winner. They'll be seen as a person who has made a good decision, a good business person, someone who is doing the right things for the good of the company. And then I want to tell it from a personal perspective and let them know that this is something that will hopefully get you home a little bit earlier and give you more time to spend with your wife and kids, or more time to go fishing, or whatever it is they want to do. Because that is where it really locks into place. If you can start to make life easier for people, this might get your boss off your back. You might be able to generate those reports in a couple of minutes that used to take you 3 days. That'd be nice, and maybe you could then go out to lunch occasionally with your friends. So try to, whatever the story is or whatever the benefit is, relate it in a personal sense, because that makes it very powerful, and that's something that people are going to go home and talk to their wives about. I had this great meeting today, saw this product that I think would actually be good for our marriage. So finally, close with a nice warm feeling, maybe some images of some happy people, or people, happy users of your system. Maybe a family in that vehicle, driving off on a safe holiday. Maybe it's just a happy user at their PC, thumbs up, very happy with the new solution. Just anything that can give people a nice warm feeling at the end of the presentation is always worth ending on a good note. And a lot of presentations don't. They just close with a black screen, and people realize, okay, well, their presentation's over, but it ends on a real downer. You just kind of suck the enthusiasm out of the room when you move to that black screen. So don't do it. So there you have it. Hopefully that will work for you, and you can download a full copy of this presentation at www.powerpointskills.com. Thanks for joining.